Welcome, everyone. This is Megan Mitchell, and today I am going to be discussing the ethical considerations of how technology is changing the social work landscape. And I am an licsw, and I am practicing in Washington, D.C. A little bit about myself. I am the founder of Agents of Change Social Work Test Prep, and I have been working as a clinical social worker since 2015. And that has been primarily working with children and adolescents, mostly elementary school age children. So I do work with some occasional adults, but generally it's school age children. Some fun facts about me: I am addicted to learning. So I'm working on my doctorate in social work at SUNY Buffalo, and I am excited about that. I told myself I would never go back to school, and here I am. Like I mentioned before, I practice in DC, so I have been in Washington, DC for the last 10 years, but I originally was born and raised in Michigan, and I am a big University of Michigan fan. If anyone out there is a Wolverine, go blue. So let me give a brief introduction of kind of where we're going to go today. So we know that technology is really becoming a driving force in our lives. We just can't escape that. And I think since COVID, that has happened a lot more. So it's going to be increasingly important for us to understand and consider the ethical implications of how technology is being used in the social work field. It's going to look different in every setting, but it is important that we know the pros and cons, and that we are engaging in technology and with technology in ways that are ethically appropriate. Technology has the potential to greatly enhance the effectiveness of social work practice, but there's always going to be ethical challenges and risks, which is with any new medium that we are using. So it's I don't want you to think that technology is all good or all bad. We really want to come into this with a balanced mindset that there are pros and cons, and there are definitely things that we need to consider and think about so that we are protecting the dignity and worth of our clients. We're going to explore ethical considerations, risks, and how we can mitigate the risk, right? We want to make sure that we're engaging in ethically appropriate ways in social work practice. So here's a little roadmap of where we are going to go today. It's kind of broken into 5 parts. We're going to start with an introduction, ethical principles, ICTs, information and communication technologies, code of ethics, technology considerations, and then we're going to wrap things up with a mock case study so that you can really work on some critical thinking through an actual case that involves the misuse of technology and how you would problem solve that. So let's go ahead and dive in. How has technology impacted social work practice or the field in general? It has helped us connect with clients and access resources more efficiently. In the pandemic, we had to rely pretty much solely on technology. So we were jumping on Zoom, which we had a lot of us had not done that before. We were FaceTiming. We were constantly on our devices. And this has been really helpful in breaking down a lot of barriers, and it has allowed us to reach more clients. It has been helpful for clients that might not be able to come in person for services, and it might be better for their circumstances to be able to connect via phone or a virtual platform. However, there are obviously negative impacts of technology. This could be the risk of client data loss. There's always hacks that are happening and information can be compromised. I don't know about you, but I get emails a lot that are like, your data has been compromised. Please change your password. So that's a big issue that we need to consider. So we need to make sure that we're being compliant and we're protecting client information. There's the loss of face-to-face interactions. So a lot of people do much better with face-to-face work. I work primarily with children, and the preference is definitely for in person. They pick up a lot on our body language, our cues. But for some people, including myself, I would much rather prefer a virtual option just out of convenience. The last thing that we need to consider that we don't talk about that often is, are we perpetuating existing inequalities? right? Is the gap widening for those that have access to technology and those that don't? So I think it's important that you just take a moment to take a step back and reflect on how you utilize technology, maybe in your personal life, of course, in your professional life, and how are you specifically seeing it impact social work practice? So we are going to specifically talk about some ethical principles that come up when we're discussing technology. Here they are. Here are some that we call this the digital age, and I definitely agree. Confidentiality and privacy. We've talked briefly about that. Boundary issues in dual relationships. So how far is too far? Where's the line between where our personal life starts and our professional life, comes in? Documentation. We need to be very careful with data on documentation platforms. And then lastly, termination of services and client abandonment. This can be something that is specific or different challenges as someone is on a virtual platform. Applying ethical principles. So let's talk about PHI, which is protected health information. So these are some terms that you should be familiar with. PHI is protected health information. And then there's HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And you should be using software that is HIPAA compliant, which means that it protects client data. You also need to think about when you're searching online for information about clients, do you do it? Do you put their name into a Google search, knowing that, that's saved somewhere? So I would think about these things, right? Where's the line? How far is too far? Is public data? Should we be searching for that? There's no right or wrong answer. I think it's just something for you to consider. Boundary issues in dual relationships. We talked a little bit about this. Do we search for clients online? Is that appropriate? Why are we searching them online? Responding to Facebook requests. You should be thinking about what your policy is for social media. Do you allow clients to Facebook request you? I have a very hard no Facebook request stance, but that's not everyone's line. Will you be Facebook friends or social media friends with former clients? What is your agency's policies, right? Do they post things on social media? Are they on Instagram? Are they on TikTok? How do we reach our team clients? They are utilizing these different platforms a lot more frequently. Do we communicate with clients outside of working hours? Was really hard during the pandemic because it's like, what was a working hour and what was a personal hour? During virtual sessions, it's almost a glimpse into our space. So you want to make sure that whatever you have on camera is what you'd feel comfortable having someone see. So things to consider. Or you might need to consider what you see. You get a glimpse into their world as well. Documentation, how they are able to access records, right? Do you have it password protected? How are they sending documentation? How are they accessing their patient portal? Is it HIPAA compliant? Is it protected? Also, you need to make sure that if you're using an EHR or EMR, a lot of electronic health records or electronic medical records, that they are protected, they're compliant, and that usually is done through a tech department, or if you're in private practice, you want to make sure that you are using a platform that does check all of those boxes. Termination of services and client abandonment. What if they need a higher level of care than we can provide and they need instant communication, maybe via text? How do we gauge response time? How are we communicating with them? Like what's appropriate? That would be a lot of triaging what's specifically appropriate for their needs. How do we manage emergencies if they're virtual? Do we use text messages? Some people are like, absolutely, I give my personal number out. Other clients are like, that's a boundary that I'm not willing to push. So just things to consider, and everyone's going to have a different comfortability with it. So as we mentioned before, there's something called ICTs, which is information and communication technology. And you use ICTs all the time, but I'm going to bring up some ways that it comes up in practice. And it refute all ICTs, information and communication.
I hope you enjoyed this social work CEU preview from Agents of Change. If you're looking to complete this CEU or for more great continuing education content, please visit www.agentsofchangetraining.com. With Agents of Change Training, you get unlimited access to 150 plus ASWB approved continuing education courses for one low annual fee. We also have 5 free CEU credits available too. Check it out at www.agentsofchangetraining.com.